Okay, so today's topic of the webinar is reducing the cost of Jira Cloud. This is we will be talking about the strategy of cost optimization around those licensed stuff. So let's move forward because we have a lot of content for today. We want to share, first of all, who we are. We are Deviniti. Deviniti is Atlassian marketplace solution partner, both marketplace and the solution partner. So we are providing services to customers, but also we have more than 20 our own apps at the Atlassian marketplace. There are more than 300 people at the company right now, and we are more than 80 years in the Atlassian ecosystem already. My name is Katarzyna Dorożurkowska, or Katz, head of Atlassian services. So my team is providing professional services to plenty of customers we have in our portfolio. And with me is Szymon.
Hi, Szymon Szerewicz here. You can call me Simon. I'm Atlassian DevOps team leader at Deviniti. My team is mostly responsible these days for cloud migration projects, but also all of kind of upgrades and maintenance regarding of background of Atlassian stack.
Okay, so let's move forward to the agenda. What we've prepared for today, we will move through topics like why we should focus on cloud costs. What is the pricing structure, the cost factors? Then we will go through 5 strategies of cost optimization, and we will tell you a little bit about the different tools which you can use for that. And at the end of the webinar, there will be a Q&A. Just before moving to the content, if you will stay until the end of the webinar, we have a small bonus for all of you. So stay tuned. We will tell a little bit more about that at the end. So let's start from the point why we should focus on Jira costs. The topic of this webinar is connected with what we are hearing from our customer. Cloud is expensive. It can be expensive. It depends from what you are comparing to what, but still you need to have in mind that Jira Cloud especially is the subscription-based product. So you are paying for all those time you are using it. And what is really important, we know that cost control right now is really important for people. That's why we want to make sure that you will get the knowledge what you can do to avoid overpaying, and ensuring in the same time that you are getting the business value, because it's not only about the cost, but also about the value you're getting from the product and from using the product. You need to have cost factors and pricing structures. First of all, just a little overview. Atlassian products are user-based or agent-based for Jira Service Management. And when we have in mind that this is the biggest cost driver, and depends on the amount of the user on the instance, you can pay from 3.1 to 8.6 USD per user. It's only for Jira. And there are 4 plans, starting from the free plan. Then we have standard, premium, and enterprise. And they are a little bit different, and we will tell you a little bit about that in a moment. But what we want to make sure that you will be thinking about not overpaying for the plan you don't really need. So what is also the cost factor or Atlassian marketplace apps? We know this from our on daily basis work, that customers, especially those who were previously on the data center, tend to have many apps on the instance. It's not that you have 1, 2, but it's almost a standard to have 10 plus, or we see the instances where there is 20 or 30 even. And typically apps on marketplace are built at the same user tier as Jira. Maybe as a little bit highlight, there is a new thing which is coming to the marketplace, and there will be plans for apps. We saw that already from few days there are apps which are in the different plans. So also this is something you will need to check. And the second thing here is that Jira is only one tool, but you are paying for every tool you are using. So if you have Jira Service Management on Confluence, you will be billed for those products separately, but still it's not that this conjunction in one payment. first step at the beginning and really important two links. You will get this at the end of the webinar one more time, and in the slides we will share is the Jira pricing calculator, which you can do the modeling of the different scenarios and do a little exercise and see the pricing. And the plan comparison, we know this, and we saw this, that sometimes customers just taking something and they are going without checking what is inside in each plan and if they really need those functionalities. Szymon, do you want to talk a little bit around the strategies?
Yep. So today we go to 5 strategies we prepared. First of all, we have user license optimization, then app and plugins, automation, data management, and at the end we've got right selection for the cloud plans. So we can go to the first strategy, I think.
Yes, of course.
And the first strategy is user license optimization. A key step here is regular checking our user activity, for example, with monthly or quarterly timeline. This can give us significant saving of our costs. In example, you can check it during the 1 or 3 months timeline, because if we can imagine that if users don't log in during that time, probably they don't need a license to up, and we can save cost here. Next thing is user segmentation. We need to be sure that our users have correct license, because not of our users need to have agent license, for example. Maybe that for that users Jira software license will be enough, or maybe that users only need user access portal, because maybe that user only writes tickets and don't need to have access to application itself. So in this case, we can significantly save a cost, because for customer accounts, we don't need to pay, rather than Jira agents and Jira software users. And here, to do that, we can support with some of the tools. First of all, we've got usage. It's Atlassian Marketplace plugin, vendored by Atlassian. It's free plugin, so you can install it on your on-premise instance. If you are planning to migrate to the cloud, it's worth to install it before and check it where our applications are used in workflows, in custom fields, in JQLs, and it can provide us information if our plugins are needed, or maybe we can postpone it. Then we've got free next application, Dr. Pro for Jira, Optimizer for Jira, and Instance for Jira. They've got similar functionalities, but it's worth to check them, because we can audit our instances and check where our users are using our applications. And maybe we can also find some cost savings options here to switching, for example, that users from applications, from service management to software or others. Also, we've got here DB scripts. It's very important also during the cloud migration, because here we can just select, for example, users which are not logging during some time, or maybe users which maybe they log in, but they don't do any activity on our instances. So we can also easily check that.
Just a quick timeline and just a quick info for you. We will try to deep dive into each of those apps at the end. If not, then you will get the slide around which app is doing what and how you can use it to optimize the user license. And a quick example, we want to make sure that you will get it for each and every strategy. This is one of our customers. The company has a huge footprint in cloud for Jira, and they had Jira Premium 500, JSM Premium 600 agents, and Confluence a little bit bigger, 6,000. So the annual cost is huge. It's almost $1 million per year without apps. And after checking, it turns out that around 40% of Jira and Confluence users were using tool once a month or even less. So the customer decides to deactivate those customers and activate them if there will be need. And because of that, we were able to cut the cost, to cut the cost of the product by more than 30%. So 300K saved annually is a huge money, only because of one simple task we done and one simple check we done. Okay, let's move forward to the takeaways. This is really important to review and resize the license periodically. And I didn't mention that, but Atlassian Cloud can be by monthly or annually. So if you are doing this annually, then once a year you need to check how many licenses you need to have. And there is always option to upgrade, but there is no option to downgrade during this annual period. But if you're on a monthly payment, then it's much easier to adjust the license to exactly need you have. And maybe obvious for most of you, but not for everyone for sure. And the license assignment should be integrated with onboarding and offboarding. And we know that it's not always working like that. So please have in mind to monitor active usage, who is using what, if it's really need for them to have the account in the Jira, especially in the bigger companies. Okay, let's move forward to the second strategy.
Yeah, I've got one thing to mention to the previous strategy, because I forgot to mention Atlassian Guard application, which can also help us and significantly go to deep dive with visibility of our users and how much they are active on our application. So this is very helpful application also. So strategy number 2, audit of plugins and add-ons. Here it's also very important to do regular audit of our instance. At Deviniti, we usually do that every 6 months, and we actively check our applications if really needed, if are really active users by the users. And with that, we can use techniques to, for example, many apps provide built-in usage statistics. We can also use app usage, which I mentioned in previous slide. And also we can review alternatives. For example, if we've got some plugins, maybe we can move to some built-in functionalities, like, for example, automation, and we can replace some of the plugins with built-in functionalities in Jira Cloud application.
It's worth to mention that this checking of native Jira functionality is not something we are used to do. But on the other hand, the cloud is developed so fast that sometimes we are even surprised working on a daily basis with those products, what is changing and how rapidly it can change. So we don't want to tell you that you shouldn't use any app, but we know that sometimes what is inside of Jira directly can be even a better function than you had in the past with your apps. Okay, let's move to the tools in this strategy.
Yeah, for this strategy, we can just use, for example, manage apps built in Jira tool. It's a very useful application to check what we have. We can audit who's installed this application, when, and we can also check this version, and we can control access for that apps there. Of course, usually the best way is just turn off application if you want to check if someone is really use that application, and then maybe someone contact us. If not, maybe after 2 months we can just disable it, and we will be sure that this app is not needed. We've got this app usage application. It's very useful app during the cloud migration, because here we can, on our on-premise app, as you see on the screen, we can see where that app, where some apps are used by JQL functions, in database queries, in custom fields workflows. So we are using it a lot during the cloud migrations to check if all applications are really needed on the cloud instance during and after migration. This is very advanced tool, so we highly recommend that to use it during that process.
Okay, perfect. Let's move forward to the example. This is the example of the customer who were migrated from data center to cloud. So there was a moment for doing a quick exercise to check if everything has been used. So this customer had 15 apps. Not bad, but always can be better, and smaller number would be probably is easier than to maintain. And it turns out that we were looking for the owner of those apps. 5 of them never had anyone who were identified, who were be able identified as the owner, who were able to say what is the way of usage, is there any documentation around why we bought it. So that was, of course, checked manually. It wasn't easy, but at the end of the day, it turns out that they were simply never used in the past. So we were able to cut the cost of them, and we were able to cut the cost and to save the money. And every app is a few hundred or a few thousand US dollars per year. So then having in mind this, it's always beneficial to check if there is a really need for use something on your product, on your instance. And still one more time, let's get back to the takeaways. Let's have in mind that less is more. It doesn't mean just to make sure that you don't need to have any app, but you need to think wisely what you really need. And let's conduct those audits yearly, 2 times in a year, quarterly, it doesn't matter. But at least once a year, when for those who are on annual payments, just to make sure that before your planning renewal, you will have you will be sure that you need to pay for those apps. And let's try to promote native Jira features. Not everything needs to be done with app. Still, there are apps who are really powerful and give you additional options which you will not get in the native product. But have in mind that maybe there are options to cut cost of those of simple, easy products and just still be able to live with your instance. Okay, let's move forward to the third strategy.
Third strategy is about fully advantage of Jira automation in Jira Cloud. Here we've got some techniques. First of all is create automation for repetitive tasks. And here we can do a lot of automations like auto assignment, tagging, closing tickets, which can reduce our user numbers because a lot of functionalities and automations there can replace some people, and maybe then they don't need access, for example, to Jira Service Management. Maybe a software license will be enough for them. And for some clients, we can even replace some plugins with these automations. For example, we've got clients which replace SLA plugins from Atlassian Marketplace and fully move these to automation rules, in example. And the third thing is centralized automation rules to avoid duplication in our projects and to avoid, we've got to match these automation rules, because we need to remember that automation has also some maybe limitation, but have limit of number of running them on the standard and premium plan. In enterprise, we've got unlimited automation rules, but in standard and premium plan, we need to get this in our heads that we've got some limits, and we need to know that we cannot go above this limit because we need to buy additionally new automation rules executions. So to avoid that, we highly recommend to build such a library, and then you don't need to have any duplications. You just run these ones from that library.
Okay, so let's move forward to tools.
Yeah,
I already mentioned most of that.
I already mentioned a lot of them. Yeah, so this automation is available even in free tier. So you can also test it before you go to higher level in example, in premium plan. And this automation rule library, it's very important to have it, as I mentioned. And at the end, you need to remember that in enterprise, we don't have any limitation, but in standard and premium, there is some limits. And if you go through them, you need to extend this.
Yeah, so let's move forward to the example of the company. This is one of the customers who came to us a few months ago saying, okay, we need to upgrade to premium. Our project managers need to use advanced roadmaps. Hey guys, let's help us enable this feature. And, being a solution partner means that we are not doing things like that, but we are starting asking questions why at the beginning. And it turns out that the customer wanted this feature because someone tested and said, okay, this is something which I really need, but they didn't use automation properly. And they were able to get exactly what the project managers were doing previously manually by automations without advanced roadmaps in this area, which makes them save a lot of money because still standard plan in the case of them, the instance of 500 users were almost 2 times cheaper. So guys, sometimes it's really, really important to check if it's possible to automate something. And sometimes there are limits of the automation, but we are almost sure that with really small help, it's possible to think about the effectiveness of the people, and in the same time, not every time it's really need to upgrade to the higher plan. Okay, a few more takeaways. I don't want to deep dive in every of it, but let's make sure you will go through them after the webinar. We want to make sure that we will be able to answer the questions. I see that there's plenty of things doing on the chat. So let's move forward to data management and storage policy.
Next strategy is about managing your data storage. In premium and enterprise plan, you don't need to worry about it, but in standard and free plan, you need to have to know that there is some limitation. In standard plan, we've got 250 gigabytes for our storage. So to avoid that we extend this, and we need to go to the higher plan. For example, in the premium, we need to also have regular project checking. For example, we can archive old issues, we can clean up backlogs and old tickets, and we need to remember to set up limit of attachments for large files, because it's very often that administrators set up attachments limit, for example, to 1 gigabytes, and users put a lot of data there because there is no limit for them. So usually the best practice for that is set up this to 20 or 30 megabytes max per attachment.
Okay, I'm giving you the slide with the tools.
And tools for prepared for this. First of all, we can just use Jira built-in features, which is archive options. So if we will see that our projects are not longer used, so then we can archive them. We can archive issues in the cloud and save some storage limit with that. We can use some of the apps, for example, Project Track, but much other to see if our projects are really active inside, because maybe from 2 or 3 years are no more used. So maybe this is a good reason to archive them. We can automate that with scripts, with for example, script runner. We can prepare scripts for archiving and cleaning of our projects. And also we can use some of the marketplace apps like Git Protect or Ravis for backupping our data and save them on our disk, or maybe on instance, which will be our archive, and we can import them on that, let's say, test instances or backup instances.
Okay, so still the next example, this is the customer from the financial sector. It turns out that they are storing really large attachments in their Jira. So they were almost reaching 200 gigabytes. And they thought they are forced to move to premium only because of that. And the thing they have done in the past, that they're starting to use the external file server. This can be, you know, Google or anything else. And the second thing they do, they just activated the premium for 1 month as a trial, and they try to do the archiving, and they checked that there are many old projects which were not using, and when they do both of those things, it turns out that they could reduce the storage from 200 to 100, around 100 gigabytes. So they avoid paying 57% more yearly only on a small thing they done with the usage. So sometimes let's check at the beginning if it's really a need for you to store those data in Jira, or they can be linked to Jira with some other tool. I believe most of you have other tools which can help in this area. And so let's move forward. And so the takeaways: avoid paying for empty space. So do not go to the premium if you really don't, if you think you will need it because you will be storing data. And make a cleanup, remember to make the archiving if it's possible, and resize the plan to your really need, without thinking that if you are an enterprise, you need to have the enterprise plan, because we heard that we are a big company and we need to have proper plan, which is called exactly like our like the size of our company. So the fifth strategy, Simon.
Yep. So the final strategy is to make sure your Jira plan is right, because many organizations are always paying for features they don't use. So here we need to be sure that we are good to go with, for example, that migration or fresh start on the cloud instances, and we can just compression the charts here to quickly see if tools like in the premium plan like project archiving or IP allow listing are really needed. In our case, maybe it's not needed and we can just go with the standard license. We can use premium features, usage metrics to check if we are ready for the premium plan. Maybe we need to adopt something. Maybe we can here check this and consider ready to downgrade our licenses. And before we also go through that, we can just use the trial periods. We can just use trial license and check all of that features if are really needed, because maybe we don't need the enterprise, maybe we don't need the premium. We can just check it before all of that functionalities, and then maybe we will know that standard plan for that moment where we are will be just enough for us.
Okay, so this is the example I've already mentioned. This is the customer who thinks they need to be in premium because they are enterprise scale. The enterprise scale was still 300 users, so I believe they were rather mid-sized than enterprise. And it turns out that they bought the premium. We were starting working with them around a year ago, and they've never in the past used Sandbox, release tickets. Never, the few users only use the advanced roadmaps. So they rather needed standard and some help than paying for premium. And after a year of being on premium, they decided to downgrade to the standard plan, and the cost reduction was 44% of the annual cost for them, which is always money you can spend on something else. And just a summary: resize the plan to your really needs. Check if what you need for this year, or if you need really an upgrade, then let's try to predict. And still invest money in the effectiveness than in paying for the license you won't be using. Okay, Szymon.
Yeah, the next slide is about reducing the cost through smart cloud migration. We go already through that point, but when you go back to that presentation, you can just look at it once again and do, for example, checklist for yourself and go through that each point. If you check it before your cloud migration, and you can be sure then that you are maybe better prepared to do that step to cloud migration.
Okay. Do you want to deep dive into apps? We have few minutes. We have few minutes, and we can use it for that.
Okay, so first of all, we've got app usage for Jira. It's a very useful tool on on-premise instances. We use it a lot of it during cloud assessment with our clients, because it helps us to check if some of the plugins are really used, and maybe we can just say that plugin it's not mandatory for cloud migration, and we can go to the cloud without this application. So this is very useful app regarding to cost optimization during the cloud migration.
Okay, let's move forward to the next one.
The next one is Optimizer for Jira. It is also very helpful in Atlassian Cloud, but it also have on-premise version. It can help us with a bit of custom fields, project workflows. In that, it can help with identifying unused or redundant elements. It gives us a lot of optimization recommendations, so it also can help us with cost savings.
Dr. Pro for Jira is the next one.
Yeah, the next one is similar functionalities, a lot of AI-based insights. It gives us full instance health check. It also have add-ons analysis and optimization. So also it could help us and give us some insights about our, and it can also help us with some user and license management optimization.
And I believe the last one is Instance Auditor for Jira.
Yep. Also similar app to previous ones. The key benefits here are configuration auditing. We can fully check our instance. We can identify problematic redundant setups, and also with that info, we can do some cost optimization options regarding our Jira Cloud projects.
So as you can see, there are a few products which can help you. So we don't want to promote any of them, but we see that they are really, really helpful and can help you at least making sure you are not overpaying. And the last example.
Last example is just database scripts. This is very useful during also cloud migrations, because we can do a lot of checks before migration, like for example, user activity, how many users are logging during the last few months. Maybe we can just deactivate some of them. Also, we can just do pre-check with Jira automation executions. We can check how many executions of automations are running during last month, last day. So we can also go through that and be sure that we don't go above the limits of execution in standard and premium plans.
Okay.
And the last one is we need to remember that we've got some of Atlassian insights. Some of them are available only on premium and enterprise plan, but these give us very good feedback about active users in our Atlassian Cloud ecosystem, so we can go through it and compare how many users are using our through the last month.
Okay, so we are going to an end. If you have any doubts, any comments, any questions around that, then we will be more than happy to invite you to 2-hour session free of charge, where both me, Shimon, or someone from the team can go over with you and try to figure out where you can optimize the cost. And really important, this won't be a sales pitch. The case of it is to really help you with benefit and try to figure out how to optimize costs. We don't want to push anything during those sessions. So if anyone wants to use it, just write me an email and we will figure out when is the best time for that. After the webinar, you will get the invitation to our Knowledge Hub. In the Knowledge Hub, you will get all the material we already prepared from the previous webinars, and you will find the recording from this one with the presentation. And so I invite you to use that and try to figure out maybe there is a content for you there. And Q&A. I saw there are some questions, so I will start from the first one and try to cover all of them with Shimon right now. The first one was around the cost of Jira. I believe, or I am sure the cost of 8.6 per user was per month, not per year. And this was the estimate on the standard plan. So what is the cheapest and the highest amount per user you can pay? Still, the calculator can help you with that. I didn't mention that at the beginning, but it's also important to think that sometimes paying monthly can be cheaper, sometimes annual can be cheaper, and you can work with companies like Deviniti just to make sure the calculation you are getting with sometimes with a discount can be beneficial for you. The second question, how is the monthly payment possible by invoice? As of Atlassian, payment by invoice is only possible if we subscribe for a yearly payment. No invoice is possible both with the monthly and with the annual payment. If you have a problem with that, you can use the rest every time. Okay, the third question. Also an example, any possibility to have a user tier of 200 of Jira and another tier userless for Jira Service Management as an example. We currently pay 200 users, but don't need them for all the subscriptions in use. I believe this question is rather connected with other products and apps. So for Jira Service Management, you can have a different agent tier than for Jira. For Confluence also, but if we have apps for those products, right now it's impossible to have a different user tier than for the product they are used to. So if you have Jira for 200, you need to pay for 200 also for apps for those products, for this product.
Sometimes users, our clients are just splitting applications between products and have separate Jira software instance and separate Jira Service Manager instance. If they see that this is the case, then they can save the cost regarding the plugins, because they don't need some of the plugins on the software or Jira Service Manager.
I saw also the optimization to create a separate instance for separate unit or people who are doing the same. And this was some time ago popular for the usage of test management products, because testers are only normally a few to maybe below 100 in the company, but the product can be really expensive if you need to pay for those products only for the whole company instead only for them. But still, you need to have in mind this can create an effort on maintenance of those separate instances. So let's think if it's really the best option for you. What is the limit of the number of automation run in standard plan?
So I need to check this in documentation to be sure, but you need to multiply your user tier by the number in automation documentation regarding to the plan. If you want, you can contact us after this webinar. We can check it for you if you cannot find it, because I don't remember it from my head, sorry. It's very often that this number is changing, so you need to be careful with that.
So first of all, you are able to check this in the documentation. It can change. It differs from the plans and the products. So, for example, as far as I see, for Jira software project is 1,070 for standard and 1,000 multiplied by the number of users for premium. So the difference is huge in these options. Okay, the last one, and this will be for you, Szymon. If you leave the old projects out of migration, do you archive them somewhere?
So it depends, because sometimes just clients leave this on, for example, in DC instances, to just turn off these virtual machines and leave it there. But sometimes clients create new Jira Cloud instance for archive purposes and migrate this data from on-premise to cloud there. For example, they buy this instance for only 5 users in standard plan, And also to save costs, they just migrate raw data without plugin data. So here they can also save a cost, and they got view to read only data to data archived projects.
Okay, thank you, Szymon. It looks like we reached the amount of the questions we have on Slack on the chat. On Slack, unfortunately, not this time. So in case anything will still come to your mind, let's write an email to me or to Szymon. I hope you find something useful during this webinar which you can implement in your company. There will be the recording and the slides will be shared in a knowledge hub for you. So guys, if you still have any questions, then reach out to me or Szymon. And I hope we will see you on the next webinar. We will be probably hosting in a month from now or a little bit later. So thank you very much one more time. And have a great day.
Thank you, and see you on next webinars. Bye.